And Tina, can you promote our speakers?
Yes.
There were some kids outside and I thought I heard Harry wake up and I'm like, no, not the sleeping baby, but we're good.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are
So for
you?
those who are just joining us, we're gonna give this our standard 5 minutes. So at 7:05, we'll actually begin the meeting. We are waiting for folks to log on and make sure that there aren't any technical issues. I appreciate everybody coming and participating tonight. Sarah, is Paul joining us as well?
Yeah, he is joining us.
Okay. Tina, I think if I don't see Paul Cool yet in the lineup, but when he does log in, will you ensure to?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I think we're going to move forward here. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Cindy, will you read the statement of compliance?
This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act with the annual notice advertised in the Trenton Times, provided to the Hunterdon County Democrat, the Trenton Times, the posting of the meeting agenda on the bulletin board at City Hall and on the city's website at www.lambertvillenj.org, on the exterior door of the elevator entrance at City Hall, and was also sent to department heads and those on the listserv. This meeting is being recorded using the Zoom meeting profile. The video will be uploaded to YouTube and a link to the meeting will be made available on the city's website approximately 2 days following the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a roll call?
Councilman Sanders.
Here.
Councilwoman Taylor.
Here.
Councilwoman Urbish.
Here.
Council President Sarah. Mayor Fall.
Here. Can I ask that everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I ask you to remain standing for a moment of silence in remembrance of our troops at home and abroad, and for those who are fighting on the front lines of COVID-19. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Opal, would you mind reading the statement regarding our council sessions?
Based on the public health emergency caused by the COVID-19 virus, the state of New Jersey and the city of Lambertville have taken necessary action to ensure the continued regular operation of government. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, formal action by the governing body must be taken in public at a meeting that is adequately noticed to invite public participation and maximum transparency. Such requirements are not set aside during times of emergency, and therefore the city and its governing body must proceed with conducting these necessary meetings in accordance with state law and in a manner that ensures optimum transparency. The Open Public Meetings Act, as amended, authorizes governing bodies to conduct public meetings through the use of streaming services and other online meeting platforms. The city is utilizing Zoom video conferencing, which also provides a dial-in feature if residents would prefer to participate by phone rather than video, as well as teleconferencing for those who wish to connect by phone only. The city will continue to rely on the procedures currently in place for public comments directed to city officials during all meetings. There will be no change to the city's public comment policy for virtual meetings. The city at all times will act within the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act for meetings conducted during this public health emergency so that the city government can continue to provide services to the community and that the public can continue to participate and provide comments without interruption.
Thank you, Mr. Opal. So we have a couple of things on our agenda for council discussion. Sarah, if you don't mind, I'll just take some of those until we can get Paul on the line.
Yeah, so he said he is, he's trying to get on, so.
Okay, no problem. We've got a couple of short things that we can do up top. The first is actually not on our, on this agenda, but it is something I'd like to raise with the council. I don't think we need to spend, an incredible amount of time talking about it. So we had a, as at the beginning of our time, when I first came to office in 2019, we had a pretty significant shift of how we were managing the meetings, obviously increasing the total number of meetings, but also allowing for public comment after council comment on every potential action. The city, I think that this has garnered a lot of good direct dialogue with the community, and that we benefited, both community members and council have benefited from that dialogue. But our meetings are stretching into an average of about 4 hours. And I've heard from a number of community members that it's grueling to sit through these, but it is important to sort of see what's going on with the agenda and the council, with the council. So I would like to propose that we make a change to the way that we're dealing with public comment now, and allow for public comment up top at the beginning of the council meeting and at the end at the public comment period, and then reserve public comment only for ordinances that have a public hearing. This is just basically, to see whether or not it can condense down some of the, the time that folks are expending, including the council, on these marathon council meetings. So I just wanted to open that up for discussion to see if there was interest from the council in trying something new on the public comment period. Yes, Councilwoman Taylor.
So we'd have essentially 2 sessions of public comment and public comment when it's required for a public hearing. Is that right?
That's correct. But it would not be for any of the consent agenda or any resolutions which don't statutorily require public comment. But we would allow for public comment before action were taken on any of those agenda items. The thing that I think that has been bothering me about this potential change is that I do think that it is good for the public to hear the council deliberate first before they make the public comment. But, you know, I've gotten a sort of overwhelming amount of feedback that our meetings are too long and that they are, that, you know, even though the dialogue is good, that it is netting sort of a net negative where people feel like they can't participate.
I mean, I agree that the meetings have become too long. My fear is that by adding a second public comment period, that will just extend the conversation and the meetings will become even longer. So I think if we're to try this, the rules of engagement will have to be very, very clear and enforced consistently and efficiently. So if it is such that something's coming up on the agenda for public hearing, in the initial public comment period, that is not the time to discuss that. And we will have to be like on it, you know?
Absolutely.
So
And we have not at this time been enforcing, I think strategically, not enforcing the
time limit.
The time limit, the 3-minute time limit. But we would, in this case, at the beginning, enforce a 3-minute time limit and remind people that if they are repeating themselves, that they will be sort of cut to the end of the line.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's worth a shot. Anything that allows for more public comment, I think is useful. But I guess I'll just go on record as saying I have concerns about how this might play out and may inadvertently end up extending the time period rather than shortening it.
This doesn't have to be a forever change, but I do think it's worthwhile. Like I said, I think this actually loses a lot of net value because, you know, the council has gotten the packet in advance, has been working on these particular issues and can, you know, deliberate with one another, which should inform the public's comments. But I think it's worth giving it a shot for 1 or 2 meetings, and then we can come back and have a conversation about it again. Councilman Erbish?
Yeah, I guess I was just gonna ask if it's a temporary thing, or I shouldn't say temporary, but it is a trial. So I think making it very clear that we'll try it out for a couple meetings and see if it helps. I think that's important, and that, you know, we'll go back if it's not working. But I do think it is important to find a way to shorten these meetings so that they are more accessible. I know a lot of people that really can't be on these meetings so late as someone with a young kid, and I know that my fellow council members also have kids. Like, we're up early and they go late, and you know, getting him to bed before the meeting, it's just a challenge. And I'm sure there's many members of the public that have a similar challenge or other challenges that just make it a very high bar of entry to engage. I do like the idea of having some time up at the beginning, especially because there are members of the public that come on that want to discuss something that isn't on the agenda and bring it to our attention, and then have to wait until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night to bring it to our attention. So I do like that aspect of it. I am concerned that we will, it could make the meetings longer. I think if we are very clear about the rules of engagement, like Councilwoman Taylor said, like maybe we can have them up on the share screen for part of public comment. I think that would be helpful in terms of time limits and not repeating yourself too much, which I know I am, I do that. So I understand it's a little hypocritical for me to say it, but I do also think that we should consider, because we're going to continue doing this as a Zoom, if we have members of the public raising their hand to speak, having their videos on. And obviously a member of the public can choose not to have their video on, but I think right now they can't. And I think having that personal connection where we can visibly see them could also be helpful in some of this conversation and dialogue.
We'll take it into consideration. I'll have to talk to Tina. I do think the shared screen with the timer is a good point, and it allows us to then, you know, be very clear that we're enforcing that rule writ large. Technology isn't in some way our friends. I'm going to stop you right here. Tina, I believe M, who has his hand raised, is Paul Cool. Would you mind promoting them? So yes, Mr. Sanders.
Yes. So I appreciate you thinking about this, Mayor. I think, if you look at the number of participants on the Zoom calls, hello, Paul. If you look at the number of participants on the Zoom call, it wanes as we hit hours 3 and 4. So while I like the order now, and I appreciate the real-time, sort of questioning from the public because it helps inform the decision making. I kind of like that process now, but I do fear that we're losing folks in the back end, creating really an access issue that's not fair because we're talking at 11:15 at night after 4 hours. So I'm game for. I think it's a good suggestion, and try it out and see how it goes. I think if in the beginning we try to respond, if we have 30 comments and we try to respond, that might, we may end up creating longer meetings. But if there's an opportunity for folks to speak up front, it would certainly help inform the decision making that happens throughout the meeting. So I think it's worth a try.
I think from the comments from the council, I can come up with, a sort of a strict delineation of how this will work before our voting session. That my consideration on this would be functionally, unless something is being put on the record that's egregiously false, we should just take those comments in, thank everyone for their comments, and then take it into consideration as we do our own deliberation upon each action item. And so that will, I think, the back and forth, we'll lose that back and forth and the conversation with the public, but I do think, there are some plus sides to that. So let's give it a shot. We'll make those changes to our public commenting period for our voting session on September 24th, Cindy? September 24th?
Yes, September.
And we will go from there. Okay, with that, I'm going to kick it over to our community advisory team chairs, Dr. Sarah Gold and Paul Kuhl, who have a presentation for us regarding some of the survey and public outreach work that they've been doing. So if you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, I'm going to stop talking.
Sure. Tina, would you mind allowing us to share our screens? Just me. I can to share mine. Thank you. So I am Sarah Gold. I'm one of the CAT co-chairs. And Paul, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, and I'm Paul Kuhl, and I'm the other co-chair of the CAT. And it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I apologize. I think Ward was talking, you were all talking about technology. Please don't grade me on my skills.
So Paul is going to get started with our update tonight. Paul, since I'm controlling the slides, if I'm not advancing at your speed, just let me know. Okay, we're good. The CAT, we had our first meeting back in the middle of June, and since then, I think we've made a lot of progress. There's a lot of issues that we've worked through, and one of the first things we did was to come up with our CAT charge, and the CAT. The community advisory team is committed to engaging in productive civil discussions to, one, understand the community's values as they pertain to the character of the city and development. Two, to understand the city's challenges and communicate obligations to the community. And three, after understanding these situations and values, advocate to the city council for plans that address these challenges and align with the community values. Our presentation this evening is going to focus on points 1 and 3. As to point 2, at our meetings, which we have a minimum of 2 meetings a month, plus now our subcommittees are also meeting. We have had presentations on affordable housing, redevelopment plans, municipal finances, and environmental characteristics of the police station site. When we got started, there were 2 phases that we were charged with. The first stage, which is where we are now, is the mixed income housing on the police station site. And the second phase will be the municipal facilities. Just like to go over some background on affordable housing. In 2019, the city sought an amendment to the settlement agreement with the Fair Share Housing Center. Lambertville was issued a conditional judgment of repose by the court, and that was in approximately in May of 2020. From there, and included in that conditional judgment are really two dates that we are focusing on. First is the adoption of a redevelopment plan for the police station site, and that needs to be completed and back to the court by December 31 of 2020. The second is to select the redeveloper and execute a redevelopment agreement for the police station site by May 15 of 2021. Council designated the police station site as an area of need in redevelopment, which allows the city and the community to move forward and to define what the future building will look like. The city has a commitment to securing the permanent home of the police prior to moving them out. The role of the CAT is, while the settlement agreement and the police means that the police station site will be used to provide affordable housing, affordable mixed income housing. Not all the housing or the units in this building will be affordable housing. The community, the city of Lambertville, can have input on what the building looks like. The CAT is not charged with considering whether the site should be developed, but we are charged with what it should look like. We have this input because the site has been designated as an area needed of redevelopment. This input will inform the redevelopment plan for the site. Activities that the CAT has undertaken to get community input. We conducted a survey which went out to all the residents of the city. We had office hours, which Sarah will talk about briefly about how we conducted them. And what I'd like to say here is I really want to thank the many people, the many residents of the city of Lambertville that took the time to respond to our survey. And you could tell by the responses, a great many of them took additional time to research their answers. So we got great information from which you're going to see the results of that tonight. And I would just like to thank them for all their efforts. And we look forward to continuing that as we progress with our other projects. This input is part of what will go into the CAT's recommendations to the council for the redevelopment plan. We will also be gathering public input during our design vetting meeting, which is on Saturday, September 26th. We hope that everybody can use that date on your calendars, as the save the date will be getting out more information to the public about how to sign up for that in the coming weeks. And finally, I'd like to thank the other 20 members of the CAT, so the other 19 members of the CAT, for all the time that they've devoted to the work that we've done so far since the middle of June. We have at least 2 meetings a month. There have been subcommittee meetings. Members of the CAT spent time in designing and developing the survey. They attended, participated in the office hours, have been involved with community engagement and getting information out to the community. And it's just been a lot of time. And especially, I'd like to thank my other co-chair, Sarah. She has put in a ton of hours with this. And I don't know how she does it, but I appreciate it. I know everybody on the council appreciates it also. So at this point, Sarah, do you want to take over?
Sure. And with that, I would just like to reiterate the thanks both to Paul for co-chairing this committee with me, and to the community for all of your participation, and for the CAT. The CAT has really undertaken a lot of work here. So getting into the survey that we conducted. So I'm sure most of the people on this call have seen the survey, and most of you participated in it. So the members of the CAT drafted survey questions based on guidance from the city's planner regarding what could be included in a redevelopment plan. And we had several modes of outreach to get respondents. So we did a community-wide mailer that was delivered to every household in the city. We did emails through the city's listserv. We had posts on the city's Facebook page, and we also had a link on the website. The survey was both advertised and written in both English and Spanish in order to reach the whole community. We had 313 unique respondents, so we're really pleased with this number. Just to give you some idea of the context of that, on average, there are about 60 participants in city council meetings, so we are hearing from a lot of people in this survey, so we're pleased with that. The survey was open from July 24th through August 19th. So for data analysis, we had 4 surveys that were submitted by email. In order to analyze these, we inputted them into Google Forms. Then we downloaded all the survey responses. We sorted them by names and addresses to delete duplicate submissions. Most of these duplicates were people who just really wanted to make sure their voices were heard and seemed to submit the same survey twice. So we thank you for your persistence in making sure that you got that survey in. We really appreciate your feedback. And for any instance where there is a duplicate, we kept the most recent submission. Because we sought input from residents and business owners only, we removed any submissions from individuals who didn't provide their addresses. There were 6 of these individuals. We created charts for multiple choice questions, and then for the open-ended questions, we had 2 readers for each question. Each reader independently coded the responses, and then the readers discussed their findings for inter-rater reliability to make sure that all these findings were accurate. So without further ado, here are the findings. So first, we want to note that there's some opposition to the site that was voiced. In open-ended items, about 50 respondents out of the 313 expressed their opposition to moving the police and developing the police station site. While this was outside the scope of what the CAT is providing recommendations on for the site, we want to make sure that we're conveying these concerns to council. And now what we've learned from community input on the questions that we asked. So the first question we asked was whether this site should be a gateway to the city. And this is basically something that would signify entry into Lambertville. A plurality of respondents said yes to this, as 45%. About a third of respondents said no, and about a fifth were unsure. Among the people who answered yes to this question, we then asked whether people, what characteristics people would like to see in this site. And the most commonly preferred answer to this question was signage. The majority of these folks preferred simple signage welcoming people to Lambertville. Some of the specific suggestions are really things that seem to make Lambertville Lambertville. And the following ideas were suggested by respondents. So promoting the city as walkable, historic, and welcoming to all, having local artists design the sign, and using the water tower on Rego's property for signage and artwork. Respondents also suggested plantings, preferably native and indigenous species. As to the community's preferences for the design of the building, a majority of respondents preferred either an industrial look and feel or one that aligns more with our historic downtown buildings. There were similar numbers of respondents who reported both of these categories. Among the proponents of an industrial look, people often said that they would like to see something similar to the Rego building, which is next to the site. Several of these respondents cited that this would better align with the look of buildings in both that area of town and the southern entrance to town. And some of the buildings, again, in addition to Rego, that were cited as inspiration for this industrial look were the Laceworks building and Riverwalk. And then among those who prefer to look more in style with the historic downtown buildings or residential in the buildings in the historic downtown, City Hall was most often cited. We asked the community if they were interested in environmental features. We listed 3 features that are non-cost generative per the legal statutes in the state. So the 3 things we suggested were native species, permeable surfaces, and rain gardens. And about 3/4 of respondents would like to see permeable surfaces, and 3/4 would like to see native species. Just over half were in favor of incorporating rain gardens into the site. We then asked, because there are certain environmental components of a building, such as seeking LEED certification, that are expensive and could incorporate additional costs to a developer, we asked the community whether there was a willingness to have a larger building to pay for some of these features. About half of respondents said no, a little over a quarter said yes, and a little over a fifth were unsure. As for the maximum height of the building, so the first story of this building would be parking, and then we had about half of respondents who said that they favored a 3-story building, and 36% who favored 4 stories. So overall here, there seems to be a preference for a building that is on the shorter side. As for the building footprint, we asked the community what they would like to see in terms of the building footprint in comparison to the current footprint on the site of the police station and parking lot. And many people here wrote about the concerns that drive their preferences on the size of the building footprint. These concerns were the environmental impact of the site, aesthetic and architectural questions, landscaping, zoning, and an overall attention to the site as a representation of Lambertville's history and character. Respondents also wanted to ensure that there would be adequate parking on the site. So overall, people fell into 4 categories, all of which were similar in size. These categories were as small as possible, same as the current footprint, could be larger, and not sure or no preference. We received about 180 additional comments, and some of these were financial concerns. These ranged from concerns regarding relocating the police, both temporarily and permanently, costs for environmental cleanup, tax breaks given to developers, getting the best possible price for the site, and costs to maintain the site and building once built. About 25 respondents noted here that they wanted the smallest possible building. And people also noted environmental concerns such as soil contamination and a desire to have adequate stormwater management and use natural plantings. So in sum, there seems to be a preference for a shorter building. The vast majority of respondents selected 3 or 4 stories above parking. There's also a preference for a footprint that is the same size as the existing or as small as possible. People would like to see this site designed to draw on the city's roots, both industrial and historical, and to have this site incorporate natural and green features. So that's what we learned from the survey. The CAT also undertook office hours. So we undertook 12 office hours in the span of less than a month and a half. So this was a really all-out push from our members, and this was really impressive. So we had a lot of CAT commitment here. So each office hour was staffed by at least 2 CAT members. We advertised them through the citywide mailer, on the website, and on the city's Facebook page. We didn't have a ton of attendance here, so this is something, as we'll see later in the presentation, we'll be talking about a little bit more about how to best advertise and draw people into these office hours. We had a total of 5 participants. 4 of these participants also took the CAT survey. And these office hours were useful to help kind of draw out some more information and input from community members who attended. So the focus of these conversations was that the building should reflect the city's historic buildings. There was a desire for the building to be as short as possible, concerns about moving the police, and environmental concerns about the site. As with the survey, we also heard some opposition to the site and are conveying that to the council, again, while it's outside the purview of the CAT right now. So Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you to discuss the CAT's process from here.
Okay, thank you. During the month of September, we will be voting on whether to recommend to the city council that the city conduct an environmental assessment on the police station site. September, early October, the CAT will be working with Clark, Caton, Hintz on the redevelopment plan for the site. As I mentioned earlier, on Saturday, September 26th, we will have a public design vetting meeting. It'll be from 9 to 12 p.m. The goals for this will be a deeper dive into the features of the building and the site plan. And again, we hope that everybody that's listening to this virtual city council meeting will be in attendance there. We, as you can see from the results of the survey and all that, we're listening to what the community says, and this is another chance for them to do that. There will be more information coming out over the next couple of weeks about how to sign up for that and to attend. On October 6th and 7th, the CAT will be sharing its findings with both the planning board and the city council. And then, as I mentioned earlier, phase 2, which are the facility needs for the city, we will be starting our process on that in early October, so that we can, as council and the planning board are going through the process of finalizing and approving the redevelopment plan, we can start on the facilities part of our goals. Our goals for phase 2, we want to get more engagement from the Spanish-speaking residents of the city, and we have some thoughts about how we're going to do that. Because again, we value everybody's thoughts and comments, and they're valuable members of our community. Increase the outreach to people without internet computers via hard mail. Again, if there's surveys or whatever, to make sure that we can get them to do a even better job of getting that to them. Engage as many residents and business owners as possible. We want to increase the participation in our activities, such as future surveys and office hours. And again, and we have a community engagement subcommittee, and between them and the entire CAT, we want to have ongoing multimedia communication with the public. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we appreciate all the community involvement in phase 1, and we hope to get the same level of involvement and even greater involvement as we go into phase 2. If you need to get in touch with us, we have that email address, catchairs@lambertvillenj.org. At this time, I guess we'll open it up to questions from the mayor and council.
So I want to start, first of all, I know that we've been doing a lot of thanking here, but I do want to mention just really briefly that since your charge began in functionally early June, the CAT has put in close to 800 to 1,000 hours of volunteer work to ensure that we got real direct community input. And that's from a really diverse group of thought leaders in our community. And I'm very proud of that volunteer effort and how seriously each member of the CAT has taken their charge. I think that this has been a real incredible success for phase 1, and with some really clear next steps for how this is going to that outreach is going to drive our design vetting. So I'm looking forward to seeing that next step in this phase, but do want to just note here that, you know, this is an incredible effort that we have put together in the last 8 weeks. And so thank you both, and thank you to every member of the CAT. I know we've got several members on the horn here. But I think it's important to note just how much time this took. I have a couple of questions about the findings, but I do want to open it up to members of council first, if there are any specific questions about the findings from the survey.
I don't have a question about the findings. It's more about sort of outreach. So I can wait until we go through the findings first, if that would be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, I want to limit the scope here just to any questions regarding the survey findings or what the next steps of those findings will sort of drive us, and then we can get into some of the other outreach work. Are there any other questions from council about findings from the survey? Okay, great. I just have two. The first is, I saw that there was a concern about the cost to maintain the site after the building had been built on it, and wanted some clarification on that. Obviously, once we no longer own the site, it would be a private building, and so it wouldn't. So if you could just explain that.
Right. Yeah, sure. So we noted that kind of just as an area of there seems to be some misunderstanding there. So like you said, the site will be sold and the city will not be responsible for maintaining the building or the site, correct? So,
Right.
yeah, so.
Okay, so I just wanted to ensure that there wasn't, that was really an area of confusion and not an overall comment that they wanted, that the survey was suggesting that they wanted us to maintain a privately owned building after we had sold it.
Right, no, I think it was just kind of for clarification purposes.
Understood. Okay. And then my second question here was actually, so it seems clear to me that the findings are that as much as possible within the realm of development, that we should maintain this building within its the current non-permeable footprint of the site. Do you feel like that's a fair recommendation from the survey results?
Yes, I think that's accurate.
And so if we maintain that sort of smaller feature and provide the necessary RSIS parking, which I believe is 1 1/2 spaces per unit or per bedroom, then, you know, that has sort of, that limits our total scope to, you know, basically right around what our minimum occupancy would be for our the agreement with the court. So somewhere between 25 and 23 units with parking underneath. Does that seem like a fair sort of draw out from that survey?
Yeah, I think that seems fairly accurate, especially given the preferences on the footprint and the height of the building.
Okay.
And I think to some degree that can be, you know, as we go through more of this, depending on, you know, the number of units that are in there, do we have more? One fair share housing requires 5 units, or it would be 5 units, and there's, you know, there's got to be 1 3-bedroom unit, and then I forget what the others are. Then I think it'd be a matter of how many other units could go in there based on, are there more 1-bedroom, maybe a few studios and less of the 2-bedroom, that type of thing, which maybe could get the developer closer to 25.
Sure. I mean, I think the rules, and Emily is not on this call, but from my understanding is the rules are there should be 2 1-bedrooms, 2 2-bedrooms, and 1 3-bedroom in that 5-bedroom.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
But ultimately, I think, you know, this survey has done exactly what we asked it to do, which was go out to the community and figure out really what the appetite was for the size of the building, and we've done that. And so my assumption here is that in the next round of design vetting, as you guys are working through what other values the community wants specifically aesthetically, that all of the buildings that we provide would be within that size range.
Right.
Okay, so it's important to note there that, you know, functionally the, you know, the starting in September, or actually I guess starting from right now, the city won't be considering a larger building than 23 units, 23 to 25 units.
I think that's a safe assumption. Yeah.
Okay, great. Those are my only questions. Councilwoman Urbish, do you want to speak a little bit about the communication side?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you guys did a lot of outreach on a number of different platforms and had different ways for people to engage, which I think was really great. And I know took a lot of volunteer hours. You know, I think, and I, you know, I'm really pleased to see how many people responded to the survey. I think that's great. For the next step in terms of having sort of a design focused public meeting, I guess I just want to put into your brains, and if there's people, and you are probably already thinking about this, and if there's people in the community that have feedback on it, you know, how can we make sure that we're getting significant participation in that, but also sort of representative and diverse participation? I know you talked about coming up with some additional strategies for outreach to the Spanish-speaking population in town. If we're thinking about where folks are located geographically, making sure that we have people that have lived here for a long time, people that have recently moved here, everywhere in between. I just think making sure that we have a good representative level of participation is going to be important. And obviously we can't force anybody to get engaged, but if there are strategies for reaching out to folks and encouraging them to join, I would just love to think through that. And if there's ways that this council can be helpful, I'd love to be. Also, if we need to just stay out of it too, also happy to do that. Just really kind of looking for guidance from you guys.
So before I allow you, the cat, to answer, I do want to say that one of the things that we thought really deeply about as we were searching through the more than 50 people who applied to be a part of this volunteer group was that we wanted a not just sort of a diversity of thought leaders, but also we took into account some of the significant stakeholder groups that exist within the city and tried to find representatives that also had other positives, right? That they were engineers or communication experts, or had something in their work life that they value to, as well as having, a lead into some of the significant stakeholder organizations within the community. And so, one of the things that is a charge to every CAT member is to go out and push their groups to do things like fill out the survey. And so that was sort of thought about. It would be interesting if we do another round of surveys, or, I don't think it's necessary for this particular survey because the outcome was so clear, but having a scatter plot of where those, if there's a density of where folks are responding from, right? If it's all downtown or very close to the site, things like that would be, interesting data to have.
Yeah, sure. We can certainly do that. I'm a data nerd, so I'm happy to do that.
And we've had some preliminary discussions, and we've chatted with a few of you about this. And it's clearly something that we want to address as soon as possible as we start shifting gears from phase 1 to phase 2. Because it's important, as Councilwoman Urbish said, that, we want to get input from as many different groups, whether it's, people who lived in town all their life and they're retired now, or, just moved to town, 5 weeks ago. We want everybody's input. And how do we get that? COVID-19 doesn't make things any easier. It'd be better to, meet with people, have a cup of coffee, or have coffee and donuts on a Saturday morning as we bring people in, but we can't do that. So we're trying our best with the technology that we're using for the virtual meetings. But if you have any suggestions, we're open to them.
Yeah, and one thing kind of to the point that we had made in the presentation to reaching people who aren't necessarily on their computers all the time, while the design vetting process due to the pandemic, like Paul said, is going to be online, we are looking into ways of advertising for that in an analog world. So we may put up flyers for that and try and have different ways to engage. So if somebody's not able to participate in the design vetting process on that day, if they're able to email us, we are happy to do that. We can also try to arrange, if this is something that there might be interest in, a Dropbox at City Hall, so that if people have other feedback, they can just put it there, and we can then review that even if the people can't attend the design vetting.
Another thing that the CAT's actually doing, but it'd be great if other residents of the city, if you have photographs of buildings, maybe not in Lambertville, but somewhere else, with the industrial type look or the historical look, send them to us at CAT chairs, or you can drop them off at City Hall. They'll find their way to us. I mean, kind of time is of the essence now as I went through our timeline, but we would appreciate that. Again, any thoughts, recommendations, we're listening.
Great. Well, guys, if there are no other questions or comments from the council, Councilman Sanders, then Councilwoman Taylor.
Yes, just briefly, this may not be apparent to our audience, but the dearth of questions from the council is probably because Sarah and Paul were nice enough to spend one of those thousands of hours with each of us. So I appreciate the time that you spent to go through the questions that I had anyway. I did have one more that I thought of as you were presenting here. If I could ask on the survey responses, so that clearly there was a number of folks, I think 50 some odd or so, that were not supportive of development on the police site. I was curious to know if you were able to track those 50. Hopefully they didn't drop off and then not answer the other questions.
No.
Did they stay on and then, sort of in the alternative argue, like if it does proceed, here are our preferences, or did they drop?
Yeah, that's a great question. So overall on most of the items we had, so just, we have the number of responses per item. So we had overall 313 respondents. More than 300 people answered the gateway question, which was the first question. And then more than 270 people answered the question about architectural style, 290 about environmental features, 301 about extra costs, number of stories, 289. So we had people were answering the questions even if they were also expressing opposition to the site.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification.
Sure. Thank you.
Great. And then Councilwoman Taylor, you had a statement, question?
Yeah, just a comment about how we move the process forward. And again, thank you to the CAT chairs and all the CAT members actually, but to the CAT chairs for giving us an overview of this in advance, so we didn't have to take up too much time with a lot of questions. But I think there are cost-effective and time-effective ways for us to collect information from people that is not solely limited to just one day of 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it comes to. And this is something I have a lot of experience with in my professional life. And as we've talked about this, I'm happy to help. But I think that it behooves us to be nimble and sort of light on our feet as we go through this process. And again, if we want the most information possible from the public, saying you have to respond to us in this 2 hour window is not the way to do it. I know that we're thinking of creative ways to get there. So I'm really saying this for the public's benefit, to know that we are looking ahead 3 weeks and trying to figure out how do we get the most information possible. And I think that we will come up with a system that allows us to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman Taylor.
Thank you
We
very
really appreciate you volunteering your expertise on this, and we're looking forward to working with you on this. Thanks.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, I want to thank Sarah and Paul and all of the members of CAT who are also joining us on this call for their work. I'm looking forward to seeing the results of the next step of this, which will be the design vetting work that you guys are doing on the 26th, and to Councilwoman Taylor's point, ongoing design vetting work as we move towards your presentation at the planning board. So thank you.
Thank you. And we're happy to take any questions the public might have, if that's all right with council.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. Actually, I was going to leave public comment to the end, but we can open up for public comment specifically about the CAT and the survey now. So Tina, would you open with Shira Gray? I think she was up first.
Sure. Shira, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Shira, you're currently muted.
Forgive me, technology, not my forte. I didn't
Don't worry
have
about
a
that.
question. Okay, I was trying to mute and I didn't. So no
Oh,
question yet.
great.
Thank you though.
We'll demote you, but thank you so much. You're doing fine. All right, I think Sean Ellis is next. Tina?
Please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Hi, my name's Sean Ellis, and I live at 204 Brunswick Avenue. And my question is about phase 2 of the CAT investigation and data gathering. I think if phase 2 is focused on where the police are moved to, I think it's important to understand what the community feels about the police force, whether it should be expanded, stay the same, shrink, or even be dissolved. This, debate is happening across cities, across our country. And, we can't decide where the police will go unless we understand what the future of the police force is here. And so I want to ask if you will be asking people about their, Lambertville residents about their feelings, and the values they have around, the future of the police force, because that data, I think, is very important for decision making.
Sean, I appreciate the comment here. I will say that, our Human Rights Commission was the committee that was tasked with working through some of the data about our police department, about garnering conversations about policing in the city of Lambertville, and they are about to close that work out over the course of the next several weeks. I know I'm working with the chairwoman, Ronnie Todd Marino, and Council President Acero on that work. The CAT's responsibility and charge is very narrow in scope, and revolves specifically not just around the police facility, but our city facilities writ large, and the future of our city's investment in those facilities. This council has taken up the question and has been asked by multiple members of the community about this issue, and the consensus from my eyes has been very clear that there is not an appetite from this governing body to dissolve the police or to start having conversations about that.
Mayor, with all due respect, that's not my question. The question is strictly around data gathering about community values and assessing, in a empirical way how the community feels about it. It has nothing to do with the decision to dissolve or expand or anything. It's really about getting data so that we can make an informed decision.
Sean, I appreciate the question, and I would say that is not in the scope of what the CAT's work is, and that instead that work would be driven by the Human Rights Council.
And the Human Rights Council is gathering that data?
The Human Rights Council has been debating about how they want to engage the community in this. We allowed them to manage that program. I don't think that every decision that is made in the city of Lambertville requires a full city survey. Those commissioners have been debating this and hearing from members of the public as a part of that work. And they're working towards the next step of what they would like to either do as a commission themselves or to engage council on any action.
Okay, I guess I'm just saying, if there's already going to be a survey out there, I don't see what harm the question poses.
I would disagree with you on that, and that in fact, the scope of the survey, both this scope of the current survey that we're discussing, as well as the survey, any surveys moving forward, should remain within the scope. If they are driven by the CAT and created by the CAT, they should remain within the scope of the community advisory team. And I appreciate your comment, and I will bring it up with the chairwoman of the Human Rights Commission when we have our meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you to the CAT chairs and everybody who's been working on this.
Welcome.
Tina, can we get the next question?
Gail, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question.
Hi, I'm Gail Carabine. I'm at 255 North Main Street. And I'm wondering, I thank the CAT committee for sending out the survey and getting the feedback and everything. But I'm wondering why there's a rush to spend money on a consultant at the end of September, and why not wait for the election? And then, since the police thing was the part of the election primary, and also I'm wondering, our taxes were raised pretty substantially in the third quarter by 15%. And do we have the money for this? And with COVID, people losing their jobs, do we have money for this plan?
Gail, I really appreciate the question. So the first part of this is that we are mandated by the court to come up with a redevelopment plan by December. And we as a council, and myself included, felt strongly that spending the money in order to be able to engage the community and really have a full-throated discussion about what people want and didn't want and what the aesthetics and values of that building is really important. And so we as a council deliberated on that for many weeks. And passed a bond ordinance which included money to cover the design costs to ensure that we could reflect those values in that redevelopment agreement. Some of those consultant costs are required by the court. We have to produce a redevelopment agreement that requires a city planner. The city planner is the consultant. We are reducing the total number of consultants that one would use in this process by simply just using our city planner to drive that process. And so we are cutting sort of the want-to-haves for just the must-haves. We're working with Councilwoman Taylor, who is an expert in the field, as well as our CAT chairs, to continue to drive the costs of that down while increasing community engagement and accountability.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Doug, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Yeah, this is Doug Graver. I live at 406 Surgeon Drive. I'm just so impressed with the CAT and all you've done. It just leaves me feeling good about being in town. I feel like, there's been a lot of criticism about some of the planning, that's been going on over the last couple of years. And I feel like the CAT is a response to that. And it just leaves me feeling this is what democracy is about. And I just love what, Sarah and Paul. So I'm going to say Bambi's husband. Anyway, I love your presentation. I love what you're doing. And it just feels like you're listening to what people are saying. So this is again what democracy is about. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, with that, I don't see any other hands. So I'll then close out and thank Sarah and Paul one more time and move on to our next agenda item. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
You.
Tina, would you mind demoting them out of the presentation portion of the, thank you. Okay, so the next item on our agenda here is the potential shared service agreement. So we have been working sort of in background over the course of the last several weeks and months with the city of Flemington, who is also looking to hire a business administrator as a means of operating a shared service. To increase our buying power, as it's been discussed in previous meetings, the city's sort of highest rate for the business administrator is relatively low in the total market. And since it has been, it seems very clear that the city has really been interested in a person who's got a blue chip resume, somebody who has quite a few years of experience. We wanted to be more competitive in the marketplace as we go out. So we, as of yesterday, the borough of Flemington voted to approve a shared service agreement that we worked on together. Both Mayor Betsy Driver and myself went back and forth to an agreement that would functionally allow Lambertville to be the lead agent on the business administrator's position, and that we would share not quite 50-50 split, 25 hours and 15 hours, 25 hours in Lambertville and 15 hours in Flemington. And that way we would both have a higher level of interest from business administrators as we go out to the market. And we would both be able to sort of satisfy some of the cost-cutting measures we're all taking right now in light of COVID-19. So we're not taking any voting on this at this time. That shared service agreement will likely be at the approved at the voting session on the 24th. We may need to push that timeline up if there is, if we are further along than I think we're going to be on the Canning Group finding some good potential business administrator applicants. So I'm going to open it up to council questions if you have any regarding that potential shared service agreement. Yes, Councilwoman Erbish.
When you say that timeline could potentially move up, does that mean that we have the potential for a special voting session?
Yes, I think I would, my strong preference is to do this at a voting session that's previously scheduled. But if we are beginning to interview applicants, it is far preferential to have this shared service agreement locked in. So, you know, I don't want to make actions assuming support from the governing body. And so at that time, if we are moving forward on any potential candidates, I would ask for a voting session, a special session for a vote just specifically around that shared service agreement.
Okay, I know that whenever we have that vote, we're gonna have a whole discussion on it. And
yes.
So I'm gonna leave the actual discussion to that time.
I'm willing to, at this time, answer questions sort of about what that shared service agreement would look like or what the process is going to be in terms of finding the business administrator if you're interested. But you are right that whenever we pass that resolution, we will have a public hearing on this plan.
Yeah, I just, I need to kind of prepare a little bit since I know that this kind of just happened. So I would love to take a look at what, I mean, I know you have been working with Flemington prior to that, but I want to take a look at Flemington's resolution and just prepare for that discussion and pull some questions together. But, you know, at a high level, I think it's great. I think it's, you know, we definitely heard from the public that we need to find cost-saving measures, and sharing this type of service is something that we should look into. So I'm glad that we are, and that it looks like there is a good fit for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Councilwoman Taylor.
Thank you. 3 things. One, just to assuage anybody in the public listening, you said that this would be approved potentially approved at the next voting session, when I think you meant to say it would be considered, not to say it's a foregone conclusion by any means. 2, thank you for working on this. I do think it's, you know, if we can find ways to get the work we need to get done, and I know from lots of different sources that it's been a very challenging few weeks without a BA. If we can find ways to save money and get the work done, we should do that. Two quick things. One is, and I apologize if I spaced out and didn't hear you, do we have an idea of what the hour split would be yet? Did you just say that and I missed it?
The agreement is 25 hours a week to Lambertville and 15 hours a week to Flemington, but that, so cute. It would be 25 hours a week to Lambertville, 15 hours a week to Flemington, with the understanding that, you know, a BA serves a specific role during times of emergency, and that being project specific, that we would give that BA the flexibility if there were time sensitive projects at either place to weigh and have flexible hours within reason.
Cool. And last thing, we talked at our last meeting about the potential for collecting questions or issues and topics of concern from the public in the hiring process of the BA. So I'd like to, if it's okay with you, formally volunteer to be the person who collects those potential questions and collate them into some sort of, you know, summarize them and put them together in a way that it can be fed to the canning group for consideration into the process.
Absolutely. I would ask if you are going to be sort of the leader of that project, you know, that we have some time to go over those questions before we send them to the canning group. Mm-hmm. And you can work with Cindy and John Flanagan on getting a submit your question to the website. There's an Ask the Mayor that goes directly to my email. We can do a similar function for you.
Okay.
Great. Councilman Sanders, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the questioning process too, and I thank Councilwoman Taylor for volunteering to do that. I just want to make sure that, you know, there's folks listening in to our last session who may have forgotten, folks listening to this session. I just want to make sure that we invite these comments in some fashion. I'm not quite sure the best way to do that, but we should reach out to folks to make sure in some way to let them know this is an option.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can also include that in our Thursday update if we can get it onto the site before Thursday. We send out a weekly email to the community. We can make sure that we get that onto the survey, onto the Thursday update as well.
That's a great idea. And
that'll be locked in there for the several weeks so that people get multiple reminders.
Great, that's terrific.
My master is on vacation for the rest of this week. We may not be able to do it, but we could always send out something like a standalone when he's back early next week.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. We'll work on coordinating that with Councilwoman Taylor.
And the second question I have is more substantive, which is that, and I appreciate your work on this and do think that this could be a part-time job, and appreciate the notion of trying to reduce costs, but yet get a more experienced a candidate in. So I do appreciate that. If we're going to be changing the hours though to 25 hours, it would seem to me that part of our job description around this from the first time around in our personnel manual may not quite fit a reduced role. This person may, because of their experience, be able to do, more things than a less experienced person. But I'm just wondering, I think there should be some thought given to the scope of duties of this person, and that we're really targeting their work on areas where we really need them for their work. I don't know if any thought's been given to that. I'm happy to help out in that process if it's helpful.
Yeah, so this is already a conversation that we're having internally, both with our internal finance team, as obviously the creation and maintenance of the public budgeting process is a large function of what we think, what the business administrator should be doing, right? That the administration of the budget and the budget process are the two largest portions. So what we are looking for, and we had a lot of edits in the original job description for the Canning Group's initial search, was to focus on somebody who was specifically finance related. I would argue, and will continue to advocate, that actually we have 40 hours a week of work that a business administrator should be doing, and that the slack, since we have lost that position, has wholly fallen on Cindy, who already has a 40-hour-a-week job. We have been trying to pick up slack while simultaneously cutting costs by not pushing that work onto
paid professionals.
Yeah, the professional services, which charge at a rate that's $160 to $255 an hour, whereas a full-time business administrator would be $74 an hour. So I understand that this is something that feels like we're saving money, but in many senses, actually, this will end up being more costly to the city. However, I do feel strongly that we need somebody with a significant amount of experience, and there is no way in which we could go into the market with $120,000 and expect to get somebody with 5 to 8 to 10 years of experience, specifically in a town that's in a current financial crisis like we are. So, we are weighing a cost benefit analysis here as a part of this decision to move towards a shared service. However, yes, we are going to be part of what we are going to be working on with the Canning Group, as well as with myself and Cindy, is to really narrow the scope of the business administrator so that 25 hours goes specifically to contract negotiations, contract administration, finances, budget, and budget administration. Because that's the largest gap, and the place that over the course of the last year, we've found the most significant budget fluctuation, costs us the most money.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I don't. I'm sure that there's more than 40 hours. Most people I know have jobs that they could spend 80 hours a week and still, not do everything that they have in their wish list. But so I didn't mean to diminish the amount of work that is in front of us, but I do appreciate the focusing their attention and skill set on something that's important and valuable to the city.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that will be a part of that is part of this sort of like specific finance role is going to be grant administration. You know, Cindy, we've been taking a ton of time in the last couple of weeks, and specifically Cindy's time, which is insanely valuable to every person in the city, but specifically to me, on trying to catch up with, you know, functionally several hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of grants, so that we don't lose them. And this is something that, you know, these aren't just road grants that are sort of rote. These are grants that really require a lot of time and attention. And we should be having somebody in the city who's administering them, who understands the full picture of what our departments look like. But we are thinking really critically about what this role looks like if we're going to have only 25 hours a week. Any other questions from the council? I see only one hand up. I think because we discussed the change of the public hearing to for next week, I'm going to allow for public comment at this time unless there's any concern here. Okay, so Tina, oh yeah, Councilwoman.
Abundantly clear, we're not voting on anything.
We're not voting on anything. We're just talking. Tina, if I think Alicia Lerman.
Yes, Alicia, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your question.
Alicia Lerman, 101 East Blair Track. I appreciate that we're going into a shared service agreement. I still challenge why the city needs a BA at all. And then I challenge why we would do a 25-15 split. Flemington has 1,000 people more than we do. Our budget's roughly the same, I guess, but they're going to have a large redevelopment going on with the CUST development proposal, and they're going to need significantly more time for work than what Lambertville will be doing. So again, I would challenge the council to really dialogue why we need this position, and if so, having a 50-50 split and a 50-50 split on costs as well. Mayor, you mentioned 120,000 would not be enough money. The analysis that was done across the state of BAs showed that 120 should be more than enough for a duly qualified position.
So Alicia, I don't know what analysis you're referring to, but we specifically went to the Canning Group and the League of Municipalities and requested information from the people who actually engage in this particular municipal business. The results of those surveys were relatively clear that municipalities, regardless of their size, had business administrators that were on the young end in the 120 range, that the average was about 140, and that the blue chippers, the people who were sort of highest sought, could go as up to $225,000 a year. And so,
yeah, right. The city is not big enough to warrant it, and the county, it just doesn't make any sense to me at all as a resident who got an 11% tax increase, why we need to add $65,000, $75,000. And I know you're going to say that we had the police commissioner and the wash, but it's just not a necessary position. That's all I'll say. And
I am going to say that we had a police director that was paid $80,000 a year and managed one department, and now we have an administrator that manages all the departments. And so that is actually a significant value add for a very small bump in the total cost of pay. And again, I will also mention that it was not as if this work was not getting done. It was just getting done by people who cost $225 an hour versus somebody who costs $74 an hour. This work, regardless of whether or not there are statutory requirements that the city is engaging with, and it is important for us to have somebody who is at the helm. We have been in negotiation with Flemington. I can't speak for them about what their needs are, as I'm not a duly elected official in the city of in the borough of Flemington, but Flemington was very happy with the 25-15 split. Councilwoman Urbish?
Yeah, because we got the big chunk of the cost. Sure.
Councilwoman Urbish?
I just wanted to comment just on the salary thing. I've been doing some independent research as well. I know some of the numbers have been found on like doing a search on like ZipRecruiter or Indeed.com. But those don't necessarily, that's not really sort of scientific. It pulls in things that are not comparable and uses them in the ways that it's comparing. You know, in Hunterdon County alone, 2 similarly sized municipalities that have full-time VA positions are looking at about $140,000 and $140,000 in their respective municipalities. In nearby counties like Morris County, again, the ranges are very much similar for towns that are specifically similar in size. So the information is out there. I'm working on trying to just pull it into something that's a little bit easier for folks to go through, because it's kind of in these disparate spreadsheets, but I am hoping to have that pulled together just to provide people as a resource.
Okay, yeah, Councilwoman Taylor.
One other thing, sort of separate from the BA conversation, that I've been doing a little research on and talking with our tax collector, Cynthia McBride, about is I think one thing we could do just as a piece of general education, perhaps at the next meeting or the meeting after that, is explain to people how our tax system functions and how we can make the most appropriate comparisons between tax bills. I'm not immune to the tax increases. I live here, I understand that. So I'm not by any means trying to say that people are imagining them, but I do think it would be useful to just give people a refresher on the difference between the third and fourth quarter bills and the first and second quarter bills, how everything is calculated, and the percentage of our overall bills that's attributable to city costs.
We actually have, if you'll allow me to look for this for one brief second, we actually have a pretty nifty, easy to read. We actually posted it on our city's Facebook page. Give me 1 second here.
Mayor, I do think though it might be helpful to have sort of our tax professional be available at a meeting where we can go over this and be able to answer some of the more technical questions for folks.
Certainly, but I think just for the sake here of making sure that folks know sort of how these percentages dial back, and I want to thank Cindy also for helping us put this together. I think this has been up since last Monday or potentially this Monday, but just to keep folks sort of updated here, the municipal tax rate is only about 16.2%. So of the $100 of value that you pay into your municipal rate, it's only $16.20. Now, there was a huge significant uptick in the fire tax this year, which was voted on by referendum and won. And so that was a taxpayer decision to increase those taxes. I just want to make sure that as we're talking about taxes sort of going up less than incrementally, that we note that the city's tax increase for the average home, which is $387,000 a year, was about $134. Yes, Councilwoman Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly my point. But and thank you, Councilwoman Urbish, for supporting my position here. I think that our tax bills don't delineate the breakdown, and the first and second quarter bills are derived from the previous year's taxes. That's just how the system works. And so if there's a change in the tax rate for a year, you often see that change in the third quarter. So it is not really an appropriate calculation to compare the second quarter to the third quarter tax bills. And I think that it's possible that's going on with some people and sort of causing undue, just undue fear and undue worry about the costs. And I think we could just do, I talked to Cindy McBride. She's very helpful to me. I think she may be helpful to others as well.
Okay, we can put that on as a note for our agenda meeting next week and see if she's available for to come and testify. If not, we can also do a video separately that we can put out for the public. Okay, Tina, if you could promote Sandra Harris.
Sandra, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Hi, Sandra Harris, 28 Swan Street in Lambertville. I guess I feel compelled to say I'm worried that we may in fact need a full-time business administrator. I think we've got some very complex things ahead of us, and I personally appreciated what I learned from our prior business administrator about how funding works and the importance of timing and any number of things. So while perhaps he wasn't the best person for our situation, it really did convince me that it's very important that we have the right talent, skill, brain power by our side. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Helen, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question. Helen, please unmute yourself.
Just unmuted. Helen Pettit, Buttonwood Street. I just wanted to reiterate how necessary it is to have a competent business administrator to coordinate among all the various projects, contracts, and departments and keep everyone in the loop. It eliminates a lot of stepping on other people's toes, and it certainly saves money. Just to confirm what the mayor said, if you're relying on outside professionals, it's going to cost you a fortune. If you rely on inside people, they're there all the time for you, and it costs you a fraction of the amount of money. So I would support even going to a full-time, but I recognize what the situation is. Unfortunately, when you have contracts going, it's pretty hard to pull somebody, I would think, out of Flemington to run down and see the progress of a road construction or whatever else might be going on, if that didn't happen to be their particular day to be with us. But half a loaf is better than none, and none is a pretty terrible place to be. So I would definitely support whatever as soon as possible to get a new BA on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I appreciate that.
Janine, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question.
Okay, Janine McGregor from 161 Swan Street. Yeah, I agree with Sandra and Helen. I won't repeat those points, though I do agree. I do think that, regulations are super complicated now, and we need a business administrator to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to be doing. But not only that, it's not really based on our population. There's no economies of scale. So a bigger town like Flemington may have a greater economy of scale where they just need one business administrator and they have more people to divvy it out over. It doesn't matter. We still need a person with the same skills and with the same, with the same qualities. So it's just unfortunate that we don't have as many people to divvy it out over that salary. So, I don't know if we need a full-time one. I really, really feel strongly that we need a business administrator to keep us, in strong financial health, and to address the stuff that's going to be coming up with all the redevelopment and managing those contracts.
Thank you, Janine. I'll also note here that, Lambertville, unlike I think any other place in Hunterdon County, has an extremely complex economic ecosystem that we have to weigh, with not just our residents, but also our walkable downtown, that we are sort of an interstate community. There's a lot of complexity, and both of our roads, main thoroughfares, are run currently by the state. So this is not just any small town. This is a very complicated small town. It makes it extremely interesting to be a elected official, but it also requires someone who is who has their hands on their wheels. At least my argument would be 40 hours a week, but as Helen said, half a loaf is better than none. Cindy, I think Cindy Yon is next.
Yep. Cindy, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question.
Cynthia Yan, 89 North Union Street. I concur with the last three speakers. In my professional experience working with school districts, you have to have a business administrator who can negotiate and steer you through the complexities. There's no question. I think Lambertville was disturbed by the fact that we did not have someone. And apparently there was no thought that we needed someone. Again, I concur, I think with Helen, I think we probably do need a full-time, but that said, given all of our challenges and at least where we're trying to correct everything, I think moving forward, again, getting somebody in place to assist is very, very important. So I endorse that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no more comments, we're going to move to the next portion of our agenda, unless there's any comments directly from the council. Okay. All right. The final conversation that we're having tonight is that we are beginning our budget process for 2021. This will include us going back to all of the committees, commissions, and boards. I think we called them the DCCBs last year to begin stage 1. I'm going to share my my screen here for a second just so you guys can see this. Can everybody see this? Hold on, give me 1 second here. This is more clear. Okay. So we are in early stage 1 of our going to our committees and commissions about what their capital and expenditure needs are for next year. We are basically just incoming with that information. It is a little bit more difficult now without a business administrator to manage those processes of going through what everyone's not just their goals are, but what the costs associated with those goals are. We had initially held, Cindy, I believe it was October 6th and 7th.
October 6th and 8th.
Excuse me, October 6th and 8th to have those initial conversations with the DCCBs. I don't think that that's a realistic goal anymore. So we're going to have to push the sort of budget, those DCCB preliminary proposed conversations to end of December, early January, and to have a sort of the late February to March be a little bit more compressed for this particular public budget. But so we are going to be sending out new dates to the council for those to double up on a working session in November or December to try and find some space for us to have that conversation. But I wanted to just sort of announce that we are again kicking off our second sort of publicly run budget. I'm really excited about the opportunity. So stick close. We are in the middle of sort of our initial summary and review, and we'll be coming back to the council in early October with some next steps. Are there any questions from the council about I know you guys are old hat at this now. Are there any questions from the council regarding this process? Yes, Councilwoman Urbish.
Just on with my brief experience with it, I actually think having presentations from what are we calling them?
The DCCBs. Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, I actually think having presentations from them in January next year actually makes sense. I sort of felt a little bit this year that there was such a gap between when they presented and when we were talking publicly about the budget again, that the public was less aware of the information that was provided by the DCCBs. And we were talking about it as if folks knew, and it had been almost 6 months at that point. So I actually think, I know it's a little bit more truncated, but I think that would actually be more helpful having it next year.
I agree. And, you know, I think one of the things that I'd like to do individually with each member of council is to sort of go over where you felt like there were successes, but more importantly, where the failures from this budget process existed in 2019 and the implementation in 2020. I certainly have a few areas that I know that we need improvement on, particularly around the capital expenditure and capital budgeting process. So I think some of that will be helpful when we have a new administrator in place, but it would be good to start to have those conversations. And I would ask that each of you guys think critically about how we could be improving that process moving forward before we hit the capital planning and operating requests from the DCCBs in October.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Are there any questions from the council regarding questions or comments regarding the budget update? Hearing none. Okay. I have I know Councilwoman Urbish and Councilman Sanders, you guys want to talk about the census. I just want to briefly state here, because fall is coming, we have increased the total number of convenience center hours. And so we'll be posting those on the website so that if you are doing your leaf and brush cleanup in October, you'll have some extra time to do your business at the convenience center. Now, Councilwoman Urbish, if you wouldn't mind giving us an update on where we are in the business community.
Sure. So I'll just keep it really brief. The governor announced that indoor dining will be allowed beginning this Friday at a 25% capacity or less. This announcement just came out. So I'm just going to touch base with some of the restaurants. I have spoken to a couple already, and folks are not sure if they're going to be ready for this weekend, since it's kind of short notice to put together a plan. But there's definitely interest in keeping the outdoor dining, but also possibly having some indoor dining as well. Really excited about the Historical Society's Then and Now exhibit that is launching this Friday. The Historical Society partnered with us and the Chamber on putting together this really cool self-guided walking tour exhibit that is all outdoors at 20 sites around town, with these really cool posters that show an image of that site at a previous date and some information about it. And the volunteers with the Historical Society have put many hours into pulling this together. The exhibit is going to run starting this Friday, November 4th through November 8th. So it will be up for a while. And also thanks to Miriam Borsch, who's been helping me think through some native plants that we can put with some of those exhibits. So really excited to see that. Hopefully it'll draw a good crowd and definitely encourage folks to get out and check out the posters and learn a little bit about our history. And then the last thing there is we have some really great volunteer committees that have pulled together. One focused on beautification. They had their first meeting and are putting some projects together. And I know some of the members of that committee helped out this weekend with the Parks and Recreation Commission's volunteer day cleaning up the parks. And then we've got some folks doing some really cool marketing efforts that should be launching soon, including some nice videos of our businesses, and just really encouraged by the folks rolling up their sleeves and getting to work on this. So more good things to come. Fall is very important for our business community, and hopefully we're gearing up to have a really productive one.
Councilwoman Urbish, I know you and Councilwoman Taylor have been working really diligently on engaging the business community on this stuff, and it has not been easy, but you're absolutely right. Fall is sort of our peak season here, and I know there's going to be a lot of volunteer opportunities in preparation for that as we move past Labor Day. And so I do want to plug again, just really quickly, that there is a sign up to volunteer on the website right now if you're interested in helping our business community prepare for that moment and to do some beautification in town. We'd appreciate it. We had a great turnout, and shout out to Megan Ruff and the entire Parks and Rec team for the Sunday park cleanup. We had over 30 residents involved, and I have to say my back still hurts from filling potholes in Ely Field's parking lot, but it was a really exciting 4 or 5 hours on Sunday. So with that, Councilman Sanders, do you want to take a whack at the census?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilwoman Urbish and Councilwoman Taylor, and that work in the business community. I know that's you guys are working really hard at that. Just an update on the census in terms of data. The collective rate for the United States is around 83%. New Jersey is about close to 83%. In New Jersey, the self-response rate was 67%. And then there's been a process where folks have been going out in the field, going door to door to non-responders. So they call that the enumerated enrollment. So it's like for New Jersey, for example, it's 67% self-response, about 15.6% to get you to the 82% response rate. Hunterdon's self-response rate was almost 77%, so higher than the national average and higher than New Jersey. Lambertville was about 73, 74%. I don't have the self-enumerated response or the enumerated response rate for Lambertville, so I was trying to get that before the meeting, but I could not get that. So my apologies, but I do know that folks have been going door to door. I know one of my neighbors who had it was a house that was split in two. It's now one, but they keep knocking on the door thinking that there's two there. But it does, as a reminder, folks are going door to door throughout Lambertville to get those non-responders. I am camped out occasionally on the weekends at the Bridge and North Union. Stop by, say hello. I'm passing out flyers and trying to grab folks to remind them of the importance of this. There are only 29 days left. This period got shortened. So to complete the 2020 census. So please, if you haven't filled it out, fill it out, talk to your neighbors. We're continuing to push to try to get to some of the landlords here in town, some of the elderly living facilities, and to folks for whom Spanish is not for Spanish speaker and other English as second language folks. I really thank Indivisible. They really helped out along with Fisherman's Mark and getting some of that information out to folks and signing folks up. And if I could take 2 minutes, or actually 30 seconds on the Pennies Pipeline too, Mayor, I just wanted to note that the Pennies Pipeline Committee has been busy over the past couple of weeks. We submitted on behalf of the city a response to a sort of a staff FERC environmental assessment. So that was submitted probably Monday or so, Cindy. And thank Kelly Kapler, who is the chief author of that. So we're continuing our push to oppose the Pennies Pipeline.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I want to thank you for your work on both of those. They are sort of longer term projects, and Kelly has been such a diligent steward of the community on the Pennies Pipeline work. So I know there's a really great team of residents who are working on that. With that, unless there are any other comments from council, I'm going to open for public comment. Okay, hearing no public comment, can I get a motion to adjourn? I'm sorry, we have one public comment. Tina, would you mind?
Sure. Phone user 1, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment or question.
I believe phone user, you're still muted.
The system will ask you to be unmuted.
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, hello?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, hi, this is Audrey Burns, 33 Ferry Street. I have a question that's in regards to, is there a certain policy or procedure that's followed for public announcements? And the reason I ask this question is, I am signed up for emails. I look at the website regularly. I try to stay informed with what's going on in town. And when the Midpoint Realistic Opportunity Review was posted, this was a time-sensitive public announcement. And it doesn't seem like the public announcements follow the same procedures to get out to the residents. I'm signed up for emails. I I did not get an email about this public announcement. And this affordable housing is a very hot topic for Lambertville. We just had a big discussion from the CAT team about how it's so important to have the community engaged in the process. I attended the teach-in session that Reverend Dobson was a part of, and he said, stay engaged with the process. So I'm just wondering, was there a email notice sent to the public? And is there a standardized procedure for public notices? And if there isn't, I would suggest that maybe there should be a central location on the website so people know where to go for public notices. So that was my concern.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I must have just missed it. What public announcement did you miss? I just want to, for my edification here.
Oh, okay. The Midpoint Realistic Opportunity Review, which was for the third round affordable housing, the Midpoint Realistic Opportunity Review from July the 1st. And there was a 30-day commentary period for the public. And I didn't receive an email. So I get emails when there's street sweeper announcements. I get emails when there's COVID updates, the meeting announcements. So I'm just wondering why there wasn't an email for this time sensitive announcement.
I have to look into this. I don't have an answer for you right now, but I'm happy to respond to you via email on what the policy was for this particular public announcement. I will say that, for anything that we are, there's a lot of information that gets pumped out from the city. I would agree with you that we have a long way to go. And actually, this is what I wrote my Lambertville Matters letter about this. It's coming out this week. We have a long way to go in terms of being able to consistently communicate with the public. We had, over the course of the last several months, increased the number of respondents and email recipients by almost 400 residents. But we have been over-reliant on Facebook and social media as a means of pushing out information. And so this is something that I care very deeply about and that we could be doing better. 100%.
Yeah, and I did make inquiry. I emailed the city clerk and also Mr. Opal, and I didn't get a response. So that's why I was calling and asking now.
I appreciate that.
I don't recall.
I will look into it and make sure that we get you a response before the holiday weekend.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Karen, please state your full name and address into the record, then please proceed with your comment or question.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Karen, 136 North Union. I just have to say, I got to thank you guys for doing everything that you're doing in regards to getting Lambertville back on track, especially in response to what's going on with the crisis with COVID. I mean, I really appreciate it. And also in spite of just a lot of, negativity in town lately, it's so awesome to see so many people rising above and donating their time to volunteer to make this city better. And I want to say thank you as a private citizen. I wanted to participate Saturday, but I could not. But it's great that we have so many people doing some good things. So thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Karen. I know that for those of you who are all shucksing about not being able to get to the park cleanup on Sunday last week, we are having another round of park cleanup this weekend on Saturday. You can go to the Parks and Rec Facebook page, and there'll also be an announcement on the website for what those times are. So if you have a hankering for pulling weeds that are not your own, I think we still have a little bit of work left to do on that park. Tina, would you mind elevating Mr. Stevens?
Yes. Paul, please state your full name and address into the record, then proceed with your comment.
Hi, Paul Stevens, 39 Quarry. Good evening, everybody. I understand how the recordings from the council meeting are being posted so they're publicly accessed. The planning board also records the meetings, but I don't know how to publicly access those. They've been being recorded longer than the council meeting. I just wondered if they could at least be consistent, put on the same place, something along those lines.
So, Mr. Stevens, the planning board records are available by request. The council made a significant policy shift, which we voted on as a board, in order to make these recordings on Zoom publicly available. You can go to the city's webpage and request via the Oprah request form on the right-hand side of the front page for any planning board hearing meeting minutes and or recordings.
Why the difference in the two policies? I mean,
because
why?
they're two separate boards, and this board made a significant policy change this year in reaction to the public, but we are only one portion of our government's entity, and our policy change does not writ large change the policy of every other governing or voting board at the city.
So why couldn't the council, since the boards report through the council and the council oversees the boards, if I believe, now maybe I'm mistaken there, why can't the council set the standard to be that if they're recorded, the videos are put up where people can access them, that they shouldn't have to go fill out a separate form? I just don't understand the logic, that's all. And
sure.
love to hear
the
it.
answer is that they're statutorily required to record the audio. They don't record video. And that audio is available through the Oprah process. That's governed by the state.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have a good answer for my question as to why they have to be different, but thanks anyway. So.
Okay, seeing as there are no other comments, can I get a motion to adjourn? Are there any other comments from the council before we? Excellent. Okay, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
That's first from Councilwoman Urbish, second from Councilman Taylor. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Councilman Sanders. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for your time. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the 24th.
Thank you. Good night.